All right, good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great Thursday so far. So today we're going to be talking about some of the upgrades for Research Grantmakers from our March 2020 upgrade. So just a couple housekeeping items. We will be having a Q&A section just at the end of the presentation. So if you can hold off on your questions, please feel free to post them throughout, but we won't be answering them till the end. As well, we are going to be recording this webinar, so you will all be sent a copy of the recording shortly after. My name is Sarah Fairclough, and I'm the business administrator for our platform solutions team. And I'm going to pass it over to my co-host, Rachel.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Rachel Sloat, and I'm one of the platform solution managers at SmartSimple. I'm familiar with most of you on the line, so I hope you're all doing well during these very difficult times. But to get back to talking about research and how we can kind of make things a little bit better for the the clients that we're serving, we wanted to talk today about one of our new features, which is the ORCID integration. So for those of you who aren't familiar with ORCID, what ORCID is it's the Open Researcher and Contributor ID. And it's basically an online repository of researchers' profiles. And the reason that it was created was because of the difficulty in publishing scientific work, humanities, to reconcile people's names against the works that they have been attributed to. Obviously, authors' names can change, maybe due to marriage or the way that people are referred to in certain publications, like R. Sloat versus Rachel Sloat versus Rachel, PQ Sloat. And that makes it difficult to kind of reconcile what outputs belong to which person. So ORCID acts kind of like a LinkedIn profile almost for researchers, but it assigns an ID to them so that it can all be reconciled against a number as opposed to names, which can obviously be difficult. So what we have done is integrated with the ORCID platform so that it's easier to pass information back and forth between your users in your SmartSimple instance and the ORCID database where their master profile might live. So now users in your system, whether it's researchers or reviewers or any type of user type that would have an ORCID profile, are able to pull their profile information into SmartSimple so that you can get an overall view of your, that user's funding history or education or work experience in SmartSimple. And the way that we've designed the solution, I'm going to kind of go over how it's set up, how it works, and also how these integration points are visualized in the system. So when we're going through this, one thing to keep in mind is your own processes, because at the end of the session, after we're finished, what we'd like to do is follow up with you in a questionnaire about how you feel that this feature could work for your system or places where you might see a gap. Maybe you have particular use cases where you're finding, hey, this looks nice, or this is a good idea, but you're not entirely sure how that's going to work for you. The feature is new as of this upgrade, so we're looking obviously for more feedback on it and how you think it can work for you guys so that we can work towards making it better. So in terms of the integration, kind of at a glance, essentially the first item of housekeeping is that you as an organization are going to need to have a membership with ORCID. And what that's going to do is going to provide you with an API credential key. So essentially, you provide ORCID with the URL instance of your SmartSimple platform, and you sign up for the service, and in return, you will get a token key, which is what we will plug into SmartSimple to basically allow the transfer of data to go back and forth. And the other thing that's going to need to happen is you're going to have users that are permissioned to be able to sync their credentials with ORCID. And obviously all of those individuals are going to need to have built-out profiles. And then there's a couple features that you turn on in the system so that that can be seen. So I'm just kind of going to give you a bit of a glance about that, and then we're going to go through. Okay, so let me go over here. So right now I am in my research webinar demo system. And the one thing I wanted to point out, first of all, is that we do have an article about this integration, which I have double checked and edited recently. So it should be up to date with all of the steps that we're going to talk about. Earlier, I mentioned, of course, getting the credentials from ORCID. So your own personal integration key that's going to need to go into SmartSimple. And when you have that integration key in the global settings menu, we have our integrations tab. And from here, you're able to go into integration key management. And this is where you would be setting up your integration point with ORCID. So you can enter those key credentials, and it will basically allow the ORCID platform and SmartSimple to talk to one another so that you can send that information back and forth. And if I go over to one of my test users, I have here now on the left-hand side my ORCID profile tab. So the way that I enabled this is I did two things. The first thing that I needed to do was to permission certain users to be able to have their profile importable from ORCID. So, and the other thing that I have to do is also to enable this menu tab. So in my configuration mode settings here, there is a new standard field that we have, which is called profile model. And I'm just going to permission that so that that's available for my researcher, reviewer, and of course myself as a system administrator. And back here in my user profile, if I click on the ORCID tab, there's going to be two things that you'll see. First of all, this is the actual JSON construct that makes up this user's ORCID profile. So this isn't the most attractive at the moment, but we do have a new feature that's coming out that is going to be pretty exciting. It's going to be able to help us work with some of this JSON data in a really new and interesting way. So stay tuned for that. But with this ORCID profile data that's imported, automatically the system is going to populate a chart for us, which is essentially the funding information from our user who has integrated with ORCID here. If I go to my options menu, sorry, I'm going to just emulate this user session just so that I can actually see what the end user is seeing in the system. When I click here on Deborah's profile, you can see she also has access to the ORCID tab and her own ORCID chart. But when I look at her menu here, if I go into edit mode, this is how your user would go ahead and sync their own personal profile with the ORCID instance. So she is already logged in, but if she weren't, all you need to do is click the login button, and this is where your user would basically log into Orchid the same way they would if they were doing it through the website. And this is what gives the SmartSimple instance access to be able to sync this individual user's profile data with SmartSimple. And so after you save and everything, which obviously I've already done, the system will automatically populate these two tabs with the full nested structure of her Orchid profile, as well as automatically generating this chart. So if I just step over here into Orchid, you can see that when I log in here as Deborah directly into Orchid, because I'm logged into SmartSimple, it's confused. I'm going to get out of here, log out of the system so that I can show you what it looks like just to log into her profile on the website. There we go. So if you were just to access your own personal, if you are a researcher, if you have an Orchid profile, profile on the Orchid website, you can see that this is where your users would be adding the various funding achievements, their awards that they've received, any types of publications that they would have had associated with their career, and of course, their employment and education history as well. So this is the information that you can see is synced now to my user's profile in SmartSimple. We have the one tab, of course, that's showing the actual makeup of this profile. But if I wanted to go ahead and, let's say, add another funding award, when a user is doing this in real life, they have a number of different options available to them in terms of how they pull that information in. Orchid is integrated with a number of different applications and search tools that allow them to pull their information in even more automatically in this situation. Because this is a sandbox version of a profile, I don't have access to some of these like Uber Wizard and things like that. But I can add things manually. So if I want to add another award, for example, I'm just gonna, demo title. The nice thing about the integration is that it's going to show the funding per currency. So obviously some researchers might be dealing with awards from different countries, but the system is automatically going to show you the different awards by the currency. So I'm just going to pick one that was in 2016. I'm going to say Canada. We're just going to pick National Research Council. And I'm going to make up an award title here and add it to the list. So here is my pretend grant that I've received. So if I just log back into my instance here, I am going to go back to Deborah's profile. I'm going to log back in as her. So your users are able to go to their profile pages, and when I click edit and go into the options, I'm going to import my profile data. So I'm going to click import data now. And the data has now been imported. And when I close out of that, I'm just going to hit save. Orchid ID cannot be empty, but it is not empty. I now have my lovely demo award that has now been pulled into the system. So you can see I have 2 Canadian awards now for my different amounts of money. And overall, the feature is really useful in that it's going to allow you to kind of paint this picture of a user's history of funding. So when it comes time to looking for reviewers, you can see the different projects that they've been involved with, or when it's time to actually award funding to somebody, you can look at their track history as a researcher to kind of help with that decision-making process. And it really allows everything to kind of be consolidated in one overall picture. You're not just seeing the, the awards that they've received from your organization, but across the board. So that's in a nutshell how the integration is looking at the moment. But again, we're always looking for feedback on how you think the features can be improved or how you see them evolving in the future. So definitely feel free to ask any questions.
Right now, it doesn't look like there are any questions. So if people do have any questions after the webinar is done and they want to reach out to us then, you definitely can. You can email us at businesssolutions@smartsimple.com if you want to learn any further about it.
And yeah, absolutely. And we're going to send up a follow-up questionnaire just in case you didn't want to, sporadically reach out. We are going to send up a follow-up questionnaire just to kind of get a better sense of how you guys are using the feature and how you would like it to evolve in order to maybe have it help you, assist you further with some of the, pain points that you're having in the system.
Rachel, we actually just got a question.
Okay.
For ORCID, do you know if they collect demographic data?
Demographic in terms of like country, gender, age, that type of thing. You can fill in those details in your user profile. So the fields that are available in ORCID are pretty standard in terms of what a profile can look like. I don't know about year of birth, but I do remember them asking gender when I was signing up. So I'd say some of the basic demographics are there for sure.
Awesome, thank you.
Alrighty. Well, yeah, if there's no other questions, then definitely feel free to follow up with us after. And I hope everybody is taking care and staying safe. So thank you so much for joining us and have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.